Здравствуйте всем.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте, здравствуйте. Здравствуйте, здравствуйте, Инdraji. Здравствуйте, Anuj. Oh, Anuj.
Здравствуйте.
After a long time, Anuj.
Hindadi, right?
Yes, sir.
Vijra sir. Hello, sir. Vijra sir is also here.
यार पंखा क्यों देख
Hello, Professor Vijra.
There's a fan also that has entered. Fan out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, iPhone. That iPhone is there, but without
Hello,
name.
Professor Vijra.
No.
Here we are. They're going to say, ये कौन है Russian expert? Let me turn on that.
We need to just actually unmute everybody because sound was coming, some disturbance sound was coming. Kalpana ma'am, can you please unmute your mic? That option would be appearing on your screen.
I've got
Unmute,
it.
yeah.
Got
Yeah,
it. Got it.
Okay, okay. Actually, we had to mute because there was some sound. We can just unmute.
It was a beautiful sound of the sea.
Yes,
I think
yes.
it was, wasn't it the sea?
Yeah. So that iPhone we got like it is Cheshta. That fan.
Okay.
Cheshta, are you here?
Oh, that is Cheshta.
Yeah.
Really? Can't you have another bell?
We can stop it.
No, no, the bell is beautiful. It's, I'm telling you, it's like room service.
Okay, room service. Yeah. Manideepa ma'am is also here.
Hi, Monidipa.
So we are on YouTube also at this time. I'll just share the link in case it is required.
Will you send it to me on my phone?
Sure.
Okay, now where did you send it?
I sent it on Rusisti first
Okay, okay,
and sharing here as well.
okay. Okay.
Vijra sir, can you unmute your mic?
Hey, look at her. Manideepa. Hey, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. It's really nice to see you after ages.
I know. Nice to see you.
I was really eagerly waiting for you to start.
You look exactly as you did in first year.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to hear all these things at this age.
Correct, correct, correct. I know, I know. Where are you, in Delhi?
Yeah, I'm in Delhi. Now, at present, I'm in Gurgaon with my daughter, but I'm in Delhi.
How big is your daughter?
Oh, they are quite big.
Quite big. Okay.
They are like one is 35, one is 40, and another one is 37.
Really? You
Yeah.
had your babies practically when I had? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. That is lovely. I see. It's just like a hotel room, you know. Room service.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте, здравствуйте. Вы из Ташкента, да?
Ирина Максимова. So,
The sound of water will drown us.
We'll have some music for some time. Like we have still 6 minutes to go. Till that time, you can enjoy the music.
Lovely.
So, ma'am will come one day to have your that bread.
Definitely.
You send the recipe, but I'm not going to make it. I'm just landing up at your place to taste it. And at Nilakshi's place, who all are making. Let's
But
see.
I'm up in the mountains.
you are
Oh.
in
I'm
Dharamshala now?
in Delhi.
Oh, where are you now?
I am in near
Dharamshala.
Dharamshala.
Oh,
Hello.
good.
Ah,
Maybe
Oh.
we will land up
How's
there
the
after
weather?
all this thing is over.
definitely come. It is heaven.
Yeah,
It is so lovely.
yeah, that place must be really lovely.
You have to come. And you get your bread from there, no? I gave you a shop.
Yeah, you gave that, you shared that recipe and everything in that Russist group.
Altitude store. Get it from there. They have it. Okay.
Irina ji, namaste.
Namaste, Ji. Namaste. Thank you, dear. I didn't understand that it is Moscow time. I thought it is India time. So,
Okay.
ये वायरस की वजह से गड़बड़ है बहुत सर में माफी चाहूंगी. Thank you, Sona, and sorry once more for disturbing you, dear.
No problem.
Thank you very much, because I really enjoy those meetings and the programs you are holding.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I hope we'll have some more programs, inshallah. Hope so.
Inshallah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, dear.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much indeed. How it is in Delhi? What is the situation? I speak with my Indian friends almost every day. And do you know, Sona, do you know about this short medicine made by one yoga guru?
Ramdev.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've got actually, I've got a message from a friend of mine who is, he was our partner when I was still broadcasting Hindi and Urdu from Moscow. And he works in Hindustan Times. So I've got this information through Hindustan Times that some kind of medicine, it's not registered yet, but what is your people's opinion?
Yeah,
Which
actually,
I appreciate.
I've
Your
seen a
opinion
message.
I appreciate greatly, always.
I have seen a message where Trump is also looking for Ramdev Baba
Acha,
for that medicine.
is it so?
Yeah.
Or you are joking, Sonu, you are joking. Or it is truth?
No, we don't know. We don't have any.
I mean about Trump. About
things-
Trump, you are joking.
About Trump, of course, it was there in social media nowadays. That,
Acha,
everybody
that
is
he's looking for
this.
this. Acha.
Yeah.
I see.
Kiran ma'am?
Anastis.
Kiran ma'am, yeah. I'm just asking her to come online.
Yes, this.
Oh, sure. So 1 minute left. Are we ready?
I'll come.
So we may start in 1 minute.
One minute, huh? 1 minute.
Yeah, yeah.
Почему-то связь плохая. Слышно все, да?
Да,
Пока да,
Алло?
слышно. Да.
хорошо слышно, хорошо все слышно. Thanks God.
Sonu, 1 minute.
All right.
1 minute. Я почему-то не знаю связь. Минутку, пожалуйста. Минутку.
Okay.
Здравствуйте.
Okay. Done. Okay, Sonu.
Yes, ma'am. We're just waiting for Kiran ma'am. She's just coming in a minute.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we can see Deval sir is also here. He's joined.
Where is he?
Here is he. Deval sir, please unmute your mic from your side.
Hello, Kalpana.
What have you got on your ears, huh?
I have a headphone. I'm in a friend's house, so
Hey,
thought I
look.
would.
Oh, you
Then
look like a out of the space, you know. Straight
How
from
are you? So
Cosmodrome.
nice to see you.
Yeah, lovely
So
seeing
nice to see
you.
you. Lovely.
Good. All good?
All good. Yes, all good. Thank you so much.
And who's this little one? Lovely
This
little.
little one is Shrestha. She's ran away. My friend's daughter.
Okay. Wonderful to see you. Fantastic. Great. Which is your next production?
Next production had to be stalled because of the situation.
Virtue.
Yeah.
Virtue.
This is Are Sharif Log by Jaivan Dalvi.
Okay.
I'm doing it for the second time. It has a two-storied sets with 5 families living on the first floor on the stage, right?
During coronavirus?
Well, it was all ready. So now now must be next year.
Okay.
I can see Indiraji here. Zdravstvuyte Indiraji.
Who's in
Vam
the
slishna. Yeah, slishin vam. No.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'll not disturb much more. Kalpana, thank you so much. So nice seeing you. And to you and to Center of Russian Studies, I think we are all very thankful that we are able to talk to you. So nice of you.
Kiran ma'am,
Yeah.
are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Can we, maybe we can start with Ranjana ma'am. Over to you.
Так. Здравствуйте, уважаемые профессоры из нашего университета и других университетов, дорогие коллеги и участники, приветствую вас всех. У нас были вебинары по переводу, по литературе. А сегодня тоже очень интересная тема по театру. Наш лектор, уважаемая профессор Kalpana Khosla, Дорогие студенты, я уверена, что вы знаете ее по имени. А сегодня вы, конечно, будете иметь возможность слушать ее и беседовать с ней. Благодарю вас, профессор Kalpana Khosla, за то, что вы согласились участвовать на нашем вебинаре. Теперь я прошу мою коллегу, доктор Кирен Синг Верму, чтобы она представила вас, подробно сказала о нашем почетном лекторе. Так, Кирен.
Спасибо, профессор Анджана Бенерджи. Уважаемые гости, студенты, коллеги, добрый день. Доктор Kalpana Sahni, кандидат наук по русской литературе. Она была профессором в Центре русских исследований Университета имени Джавахарлала Неру, Нью-Дели. Ее опубликованы множество статей по литературе и вопросам межкультурного взаимодействия. Скажу несколько слов о ее семье. Kalpana родилась в высокообразованной семье знаменитого писателя, драматурга и актера Бхишма Сахни. Ее отец – талантливый педагог, прекрасный лектор и очень известный писатель. Ее дядя, брат отца, был известным актером, Балрадж Сахни, он тоже получил высокое образование. В 2010 году выходила в свет ее книга Multi-Stories Cross-Cultural Encounters. Эта уникальная работа исследует посредством личных рассказов переплетение и смешение культур, а также огромное культурное разнообразие во всем мире. Это исследование неизбежно ставит под сомнение понятие высших или низших культур, а также цивилизованных и нецивилизованных народов. Действительно, это ставит под сомнение саму концепцию превосходства одного народа над другим среди народов. Помимо межкультурных встреч в этой работе также обсуждается, как различные демократические и недемократические правительства и организации пытались скрыть межкультурные влияния, изобретая превосходство, чистоту и подлинность культур и цивилизаций в ущерб другим. И все же межкультурное взаимообогащение, непрерывный процесс, всегда проявляется в игнорируемых трещинах истории. Книга показывает, что Индия не является исключением и была и остается разнородной. Многочисленные примеры крестного взаимопроникновения, в том числе Алжир, Индонезия, Камбоджа и другие, вынуждают нас пересматривать культурные конструкции и даже сам смысл культуры. Следующая ее публикация «Crucifying the Orient: Decolonization of Caucasus and Central Asia». Распятие Востока, колонизация Кавказа и Центральной Азии. Она была опубликована в 1997 году. В этой уникальной книге описывается уничтожение русскими культур Кавказа и Центральной Азии и негативное влияние на сознание коренного населения региона в результате длительной колонизации, начавшейся в царские времена. Следует отметить еще один талант нашей гости сегодня. Она высококлассный редактор, тонко чувствующий нюансы языка слова. Профессор Kalpana Sahni отредактировала сборник рассказов известного индийского писателя Бхишма Сахани, то есть художественные тексты своего отца, и этот сборник был опубликован в 2016 году. Кроме этого, профессор Kalpana Sahni пишет интересные книги и статьи, раскрывающие новый взгляд на творчество русских писателей. Так опубликована книга «Умф брожений. Проза Михаила Булгакова». Издатель Арнольд Хейнеман, Нью-Дели. Вышел в свет также анализ и воспоминания о самых родных ей людях, об отце и дяде. Статья, опубликованная в журнале «Социолог», называется «Два брата Бхишма и Балрадж Сахани». Вот, была опубликована в 2011 году. Сегодня хочется еще раз подтвердить известное изречение «талантливый человек, талантлив во всем». Еще одна грань творчества профессора Kalpana Sahni раскрылась в кинематографии. Она снялась в очень известном фильме «Гарм Хава» со своим знаменитым актером дядей, старшим братом отца, господином Балраджем Сахани. Итак, у нас в гостях профессор, уважаемый и известный ученый, профессор Kalpana Sahni. Профессор Kalpana Sahni, мэм, приветствую вас.
Спасибо. Спасибо, мэм.
Киран меня решала, что ничего не будет говорить. Непослушные студенты называют. Непослушные.
Сейчас уже.
Да. Только потому, что у вас микрофон с вами, да? А то, знаете, как было бы.
Извините, если не так получилось. Все нормально, я думаю. А вы не сердились, не обиделись. Спасибо, спасибо.
Благодарю всех. Я очень рада быть с вами сегодня. Но в основном я буду говорить на английском языке. Почему? Потому что я уже забыла все. Во-вторых, потому что я буду с вами делиться работой, над которым я сейчас работаю, скажем, да. Я уже перевела почти все с русского. И сидя в Dharamsale, мне очень трудно искать подлинники на русском языке. Так что я очень долго преподавала на русском языке. Сегодня вы должны меня послушать на английском языке. So, my dear listeners, I had told Kiran and Sonu earlier on that I am not used to talking to a blank computer. I need my students in front of me. And
You're there.
they are all there. And I can see some of you. So that is the nicest, beautiful thing. So I do not feel that, I'm talking to a wall. We have all been living through 3 months now it is of coronavirus. And I don't think it's been an easy time for anybody. A lot of us must have done a bit of rethinking about our lives, about our values, about ecology. And that is exactly what I will be talking about, of how there were people in the 19th century who, through trauma in their lives, began to rethink their own life, their philosophy, and their ideals. So, all I can say is that prior to the First World War, so we take the decade, let's say, before the it was one of the most exciting periods in European cultural history, I would say, and also in Russian cultural history. And a lot of it just miraculously disappeared. It became a mystery over time, you know. So there were exciting cultural movements, there were exciting movements in the arts, in theater, in literature, and crisscrossing across Europe. People were sort of collaborating with each other. And out of it came the term modernism. Modernism, which we have been brought up to think was an absolutely Western term when we talk of modern art and we talk of abstract art, let's say. It is...
Sorry to interrupt you. Would you like to show your presentation?
No. Wait for 2 minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
All right. All
This
right.
is... Это видение, дорогой, видение.
Я понял. Спасибо.
Okay. So, modernism was projected as a typically Western product, whether it was abstract art, whether it was new type of cinema, theater, music, you name it, everything. And yet, in reality, the inputs that came from non-European cultures for the making of this amazingly vibrant cultural scene were, over time, ignored and brushed aside, and they disappeared under the carpet. And so for about practically the whole of the 20th century, nobody, including Russians, had no clue about their own amazing inputs in this field. And these inputs, a lot of them owed their inspiration to non-Western ways of thinking. And so I will give you my experience and how it started. And it's been a long sort of journey, but they say, you know, that researchers are like, they have to be like detectives, because, you know, you find one little jewel, then you are taken around the wrong path, then you find something else, and you just persevere and persevere. So what my idea of sharing with you today is that I hope all of you will join in and work on these exceptionally bright and wonderful people who just disappeared. You know, they were there and then they were no longer there. And I'll give a few examples of them, okay? So now, let us now start the, okay, how do I go, Sonu?
Just click on share screen first.
On
which
what?
is there at the bottom, share screen.
Share
A green color button
There's no
at the bottom.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes.
And
Share.
select the desktop
Yes.
and click again on share.
Okay.
Yes, and then now on slideshow. Slideshow at the bottom. Third option.
This one?
Yes, yes.
Okay, no. Okay. All right. So let us start from the beginning, and you must stop me if I talk too long. I'll start. It's not about theater really. We'll be talking about poets, we'll be talking about theater. Yes, we'll be talking also about artists. And it starts, our journey starts on December 1914. A new theater in Moscow opens its doors with its first production, Kalidas. It's not opening.
Just click.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
No, before, all right, before the Kalidas, we'll start with this. Kalidas has a wonderful quotation from Shakuntala. He says, just as a man sees an elephant pass by before his very eyes, but doubts its existence, then noticing its footprints ceases to doubt. So you had lots of elephants traversing the continents of Europe and going across even to America from the east. But they were miraculously, they disappeared. And yet when they were there in Europe, they had an amazing presence and influence. So let us just look at now. Can you see this?
Yes, ma'am. We can see this.
All right. So here is a poem by Velimir Scriabin, who was a judge, the greatest poet of the 20th century. And he had written a poem that people couldn't decipher for a long time, till I think in the 1970s, finally they understood what it was. He had seen a miniature painting, which I just now showed you. You saw it just now. Is this on your full screen? The
yes, Velimir Scriabin slide is there.
Yeah, but the elephant also, no?
Elephant is there
Yes,
also.
it is
Right.
there.
So he had seen a miniature painting of an elephant with these girls. It was composed of the girls. And before, people couldn't understand what is he talking about, because he suddenly saying, "Меня проносит на слоновых носилках слон девица дымный", причем тут девица, извините. "Меня все любят, Вишну новый, сплетя носилок, призрак зимний". Опять, что это, кто это, никто не понимал. И следующий, пишет он там дальше, "А я бодисаттва на белом слоне, как раньше задумчив и гибок". 1913 год. Хлебников, который очень любил Индию, Японию, он даже занимался японским языком, по-другому смотрел на слона и на то, что означает культура других стран. Идем дальше. Значит, 12 декабря Новый театр, первая пьеса поставлена Шакунтала Таирова, Калидаса. As you can see, you have very minimal sketches for the stage design. Now, it is very difficult for someone 100 years later practically to understand what a play was, because I haven't seen that play. Yet, what happened was that Tairov turned not just to Shakuntala. I mean, people were absolutely bowled over by Shakuntala. You had different translations of it. Brusov, the poet, in fact, stated that people learned Sanskrit or studied Sanskrit just to be able to read Kalidas in the original. Such was the state of Kalidas's popularity at that time. And so I've got this in front of me, but nothing else. And then I read some of the reviews that start coming out at that time, which say this was magical. There was no such production in the entire theater season. It was unlike we've seen ever. So what was it? They said, we loved the empty stage, which just had some color backdrops to suit the mood. You must underline this, suit the mood or emotion of the moment. It was poignant, it was lyrical, it was magical. And with these semi-naked bodies, semi-nude bodies, which had been painted over to suit some emotion. And that set me thinking, well, this, excuse me, is from the Natya Shastra. These are the basic things that we get in the Natya Shastra. So, one started going into it. And finally, one discovered that actually, Tairav had not only imbibed the idea of a new type of theater by saying that, the actor is all in all. He has to be physically, emotionally, absolutely well trained. And everything has to be subservient to the actor. He took many, many aspects which were even more important from the Natya Shastra, and that was the theory of ras. Ras, which is very difficult to explain or even translate into another language. So ras he explained as emotion. And we won't go into that, but anyway, so this was his, this particular play or the production turned into the cornerstone of his entire theatrical philosophy, let's put it that way. It was a theater of emotions, strong emotions, which he picked up from the Ras theory. And very soon, I mean, I think in 1921, he had taken his group to Germany and Paris, and he was hailed as the most modernist theater director of that time. So his name, again, you have not heard of him, you've heard of other names, which we'll also talk about in a little time. But this was his philosophy, and it was a very, very important idea. So we've got a very lovely photograph image from that particular, that's Tairav on the director. And so now you will understand why I used that particular logo. This became the logo of that theater when they were also celebrating 10 years of the theater. You can see it's an extremely modern design on the one hand, and yet it's also very Buddhist, isn't it? It's a very, very Buddhist one. So, but that was not just by chance. Now, sorry, before we come to this gentleman, let me just give you a few more details. For the Shakuntala production, Tairav had invited a gentleman, Paul, as the composer. Paul was heavily into yoga. One of his lungs had got operated on, and the doctors had given him just a few months of life. Well, with his yoga practices and vegetarianism, he lived till, I think, 84. Another person around was the composer Scriabin. I don't know whether you've heard the name. Scriabin was again a modernist composer who had dreams of going to India and actually constructing a theater there for his latest work that he was working on. And he wanted it to be a spectacle of light, sound, dance. Unfortunately, he died before that. Scriabin's favorite book was the Theosophist Blavatskaya's book, The Sound of the Silence. Moving on, Baltrushaitis, Jurgis Baltrushaitis was a poet who was on the literary board of this very theater. He'd been on the literary board of Moscow Theater, and he knew Sanskrit, Hindi. He had translated the Bhagavad Gita first. He had translated Tagore's Gitanjali and some of his plays, and he loved doing Surya Namaskar. Let's go on to the next person. Next one, who else is there in that group? And of course, there's Balmont, who's the translator of Shakuntala. Balmont had translated all Kalidas's plays. And he, in fact, insisted sometimes of being addressed as Vayu. I am Vayu, excuse me, you know, the Indian god of wind. Now, a few blocks away from Tairov's theater, there was another gentleman who was heavily into yoga, pran, sending rays, okay, chakras, and that was none other than the guru of world theater, really. He's the guru of world theater acting. Stanislavski, you might have heard of him. Stanislavski had since 1911 introduced yoga as a very important integral part of his teaching methods, acting methods. You must have heard of him. He's really very, very important in the theater world, in the acting world. And I'll just read out to you some. He's written in one of his diaries about one of his lessons, and he says, yep, предупредил. Понимать значит чувствовать. Давал разные задания. Говорил о хатха-йога. Давал задания по мышечному напряжению и расслаблению мускулов. Всех заставил испытать на сцене круг, the circle, okay? And now, he said, in a successful performance, pran rays pass between actors and their partners and between actors and their audiences. Now, this was one of the most carefully hidden secrets of the 20th century. And what was it? What was it? All his references to pran, to yoga, to acting techniques about yoga were deleted from all his works. So, I'm going to give you a quotation. What happened was that towards the end of the 1920s, all the experimentation in the arts was frowned upon by the cultural commissars. Stanislavski, by now an iconic figure for the Soviet state, was coerced to delete from his publications all references to terms such as yoga, pran, rays, emanation, intuition, spirit, and superconsciousness, as, I quote, according to the beliefs of Stalin's ideologists, the great man of socialist realism in theater could not be inspired by the mystical studies of Indian hermits. The word yoga was edited out in the 1926 edition of My Life in Art, Moja жизнь в искусстве. Pran appears only once in the commentary of Stanislavski's collected works in 1955, where it is explained that the term pran, borrowed from the philosophy of Hindu yogis, has been replaced with a clearer and more scientific term, muscular energy, or simply energy. So you can imagine these omissions in the Russian texts extended to all Stanislavski's translated works. And it is like, you know, one limb of somebody just gets left out, and a very important limb of a theory that he had created in acting, yoga was so integral. So what happened was, no mention of it in the English, French, German, any of the editions of his works. It did not exist. And only after Perestroika, more or less, yes, Perestroika period, did they open the archives in the Moscow Art Theater. Some of his students' work on yoga and Stanislavski began, of course, in America, because that is where some of his students had migrated. They were the first ones to explain how he used to work with them. And then they opened up the archives and they discovered these books of Stanislavski. One was called Hatha Yoga and the other one was Raj Yoga. And funnily enough, they were written by a gentleman called Ramcharak, and he acquired them, I think, in 1911 or 1909, I'm not sure. And there were copious notes of Stanislavski on the margins. Then they discovered that Stanislavski's lecture notes were practically all taken from Ramcharak's works. And Ramcharak, by the way, by then they had already translated Ramcharak into Russian also. And incidentally, as an aside, Ramcharak's works even now are available. They were the most best-selling works right through the 20th century. So who was this gentleman, Ramcharak? He was a gentleman from Chicago called William Atkinson, who had never set foot in India, never. And yet his books, I mean, you know, one can give a full lecture on what all the influence of his books on various people, from poets to actors to writers. The list is endless. So anyway, so this was the best kept secret, and this was this mystery that has only now come to light. So you can imagine a person works all his life working on a particular acting method, and the major part of it is, you know, just thrown out. And I'll give one more example of this. I don't know whether you've heard of this gentleman, Mikhail Chekhov. Have you ever heard of him? Mikhail Chekhov was Anton Pavlovich's nephew. And he was a brilliant student, brilliant actor. He was Stanislavski's student. So when Stanislavski opened the first studio, it was called the Experimental Studio, where they experimented, and it was a wonderful theater also, which initially was headed by another student of Stanislavski called Vakhtangov. And later on, when Vakhtangov died, Mikhail Chekhov took it over. Now, Mikhail Chekhov, what I read out to you about from Stanislavski's note about reading out about Hatha Yoga with the students was to this group. So Chekhov continued that tradition of teaching yoga to the students. And he also brought in some other exercises which are from Rudolf Steiner's exercises. He was thrown out of the institute in 1928 because one of the students complained that he was teaching religion referring to yoga. And life is strange because Mikhail Chekhov, then he was forced to leave. He wrote letters to the Lunacharsky. He said, "What are you doing? I'm only teaching yoga." And by the way, Lunacharsky was a great palmist. He was a well-known palmist. You've heard of, he was the first Commissar of Culture, no? After the revolution. Anyway, so Mikhail Chekhov leaves Russia after a lot of problems. He finally arrives in America. And look at the irony, what Russia lost, America gained. Because amongst his students in America are some of the finest actors in the, I don't know, you are too young maybe to have heard of them, but let's say Gregory Peck, Anthony Quinn, Ingrid Bergman, and Marilyn Monroe. This is just the tip of, there are many, many more names. So I suppose one person's loss is someone else's gain. Everyone was into yoga those days. Alexander Bloch, in fact, recalls, he says, you know, in Moscow, there were all these jokes going around, which actually did take place, that in one of the teachers' classes in the Stanislavski's acting studio, 2 youngsters were told to lie down and only talk when they felt like it. And she says, 1 hour passed, 2 hours passed, and they just kept lying down and they didn't feel like, nobody told them that, listen, excuse me, you have to get into the framework of yoga and meditation. You don't go fall off to sleep. So this was at one end. Tairov had gone in for the Indian theory of dramaturgy to get inspiration from. Meyerhold, the other director, young director, approached Chinese techniques, Japanese techniques for his theater, which again was considered the most modern theater in the world. And his student Eisenstein, the film director, by the way, he was Meyerhold's. He studied the Japanese language, and his entire editing, film editing, he owes, as he said in his writings, to Japanese hieroglyphics and painting. Let's move on. For some, it was yoga. For some others, it was philosophy. And now, again, within walking distance of the Moscow Art Theatre and Tairov's theatre, a huge exhibition, one-person show opened by the, it was called a retrospective. Normally retrospectives, you know, are done at the end of your life. Here was a 32-year-old girl with a show which had nearly 800 works and covered God knows how many. I think there were 3 or 4 huge halls of the exhibition area. Natalia Goncharova, by the way, is not just by chance Natalia Goncharova. I don't know why her parents called her that. She actually was related to Pushkin's wife. So one would think that, you know, you don't name a person after someone who had such an awful reputation after Pushkin died. And yet, okay, so here was Natalia Goncharova. She was always in trouble. For her first exhibition, some things were confiscated. She was arrested. Her next exhibition, again, there were problems because the authorities didn't like it. The critics came up with something. This particular exhibition in 1913, she was accused of eclecticism, meaning, why doesn't she have her own style? Painters are supposed to be having a style of their own. Why has she got some Egyptian style here, some Chinese style in her painting, another work, Indian style, Persian style? And they said, this woman is not going to go anywhere. But there were other critics who said, no, she is the best painter around. By the way, if you do go on the net, please take a look. She's had some of the biggest exhibitions in Europe just now, last year. And suddenly, the Russians who'd never heard of her, by the way, for nearly a century, suddenly now are all clamoring to find out more about Natalia Goncharova. So why have we taken her? I'm only giving you very few painters, but just to give you the gist that there were many of them like her. Let us see. So this is the forward to her Predislovia, to her exhibition, okay? Мною пройдено все, что мог дать Запад до настоящего времени. Теперь я отряхаю прах от ног своих, я не могу читать там, и удаляюсь от Запада, считая его нивелирующее значение весьма мелким и незначительным. Мой путь к первоисточнику искусств, к Востоку. Запад мне показал одно. Все, что у него есть, с Востока. И внизу она еще добавляет, достаточно посмотреть на изображения арабские и индийские, чтобы установить происхождение наших икон и искусства, которое до сих пор живет в народе. И теперь я вам покажу такой фестиваль. Вот, пожалуйста. Вы Николая Гумилева знаете, да? Поэт Гумилев, он очень любил Гончарову и ее мужа, тоже художника Ларионова. Гумилев был просто в восторге от миниатюры, от персидской поэзии, китайской поэзии. И вот Гончарова сделала портрет его. Как вы видите, портрет в стиле миниатюры. Persian miniature painting. And even the Persian bird of paradise. But there's a Chinaman behind, as you can see, and Gumilev is writing his poetry of verse. He was at that time working on a book of verse on Chinese poems. So she did this, and he wrote a poem called Goncharova Illarionov, in which he writes, «Востоки нежный и блестящий в себе открыла Гончарова». I'm only going to read out portions of it, okay? Павлиных красок бред и пение от Индии до Византии. Кто видит сон Христа и Будды, тот стал на сказочные тропы. В персидских милых миниатюрах величие жизни настоящей. Okay, this is the English text of what I had read out to you. Shunyata, пожалуйста, emptiness. Again, Goncharova. Now, the thing is that all these artists and painters were not only looking at the styles of painting or yoga per se. They were actually deep into the philosophy, and the basic thing that they really liked was the fact that these cultures were, wait, let me just read it out to you. Non-dualistic cultures, which means that everything is one. Tat Tvam Masi. Khlebnikov has a, he says somewhere, Ya Takavich, trying to say Tat Tvam Masi. He was also into it. I am that, I am part of the universe, the microcosm and the macrocosm. And so you have, Pran is not just the rays. Pran is also energy going from one to the other. It is vibrations, and all that gets reflected. Wait, I just want to tell you one thing that she has said. She said, what attracts her to the East is the philosophy inherent in the Eastern approach to art and life. Eastern cultures like Persia, India, Japan, and the Slavs for Ganjarova, and I quote, share a great love for synthesis in their understanding of the world that surrounds them. And that leads, according to her, to stupefying monumentality and freedom. So now, so we can try and visualize the rays that emanate from every object and every human being also, and interact. Vibrations, rays, these are two of her paintings. And I think that's that. We go to the next person. Another gentleman by the name of Kazimir Malevich. People sort of later on, much later in the 50s, started sort of stating he was the first abstract painter. You know, abstract painting was Kazimir Malevich's, this one. All right, the concept of shunya. Shunya. And I will show you something, then we'll come back to this. Please look at this, what I found. This is a rare thing that I found. This is in his words. As you can see, he has made a diagram. On top is little mandala, correct? Down below, shunya, абсолютная пустота. Дальше bindu, семя мира, источник энергии. Okay. So you can see this, and we again go back to the previous one. So the void as nothing and everything. The black void, then he made the white square. And this was part of the Buddhist, the Eastern traditions actually, no? Zero for the Western world was banned, you know that for many years, many centuries. The concept of zero was banned because it was the play of the devil, they used to say. No, I can't find it. Okay, please go here. All right. I'm not showing you many more. Okay, I'll show you one more, which is interesting. This is a very famous painter called Annenkov, and he gives us a portrait of Gorky, but please just see what is in front. And you will notice a huge Buddha. But Gorky, it transpires, collected a lot of Buddhas. Lots of Buddhas that he collected. By the way, there was also another gentleman who collected lots of Buddhas, and he became later on the French cultural minister of culture. His name was André Malraux. He used to chop off the heads of Buddhas in Cambodia and then bring them by shiploads. Anyway, so let us now go. Now, where did it all start? Why did it start? Why was it that you had so many people into this obsession? And we have to go to Europe, because Paris also was the hub of culture those days. And what happened was that after the French Revolution, you had many revolutions in Europe. And most of our painters, poets, they stood at the barricades, they were revolutionaries. But they saw so much of violence that they turned against violence. And they turned against the state. And they turned against colonialism. And they turned against industrialization, because that meant poverty for people being brought from the villages in the towns. And so suddenly in mid 19th century, by chance, a whole lot of Japanese woodcut prints arrived in Paris. And suddenly, I mean, here were people who had now started questioning all the ideas of the Enlightenment, which was progress, which was linear theories, of, and where you had the European civilization on top. You had Enlightenment that was sort of going into Marxism and socialism also at that time. And on the other hand, you had a whole lot of people who were saying, no, no, this is not progress. What you're doing to our towns, by the way, what we are doing to our towns, also same thing, no, is not progress. What the impoverishment of our own people is not progress. Colonialism is not progress. And they also started questioning the very foundations of the academies. If it was painters, they said, why do we have to paint this nonsense? Why can't we paint what we want to? So they went against the academies, they went against the government, and suddenly you have these amazing Japanese painters that they discover who have their own theories, their own approach to painting, which is just as sophisticated, but different. And so I'm showing you a painting by a very well-known painter called Vincent Van Gogh, who started collecting, I mean, every painter of that time in Paris started collecting these paintings. They were very cheap. They were used as, I think, wrappings or something. And here you have, on your right-hand side is the, on the left-hand side is the original painting, okay? So Vincent Van Gogh, what does he do? He traces it, makes a copy, and then in a garbled way, as though it's Japanese, paints his work. So this was the effect. It's not just him, by the way. It was so many people who turned to Japan. And this turned the tide, meaning it's not just Japanese. It's not just the painting. What about the philosophy behind it? What about the Buddhist ideas behind it? And so then we come to the next very, very important guy. So Vincent Van Gogh says, look, we love Japanese painting. We've experienced its influence. All the Impressionists have that in common. And the next gentleman is Gauguin. Gauguin was a very big influence on painters. And I'm showing you these for his hand postures. He left France and he went to the islands in the Caribbean, where because he was so anti-colonial policies, he said, you know, we are the savages, not these people. What we are doing by colonizing them. And so he also turned to the concept of compassion, the Buddhist compassion. And he's got lots of paintings, by the way. So these are two monks. We took their photograph here down the road in Dharamsala. They're giving you that very hand pose. You can see a Buddha. This is again Gauguin. So there were lots of translations happening at that time. Lots of people turned to Buddhism at that time. Here are two people, I don't know whether you've heard of them. On the left-hand side is a very famous composer, French composer, Claude Debussy. His friend, also composer, Eric Satie. And in the middle is a Buddhist statue. And the photograph has been taken by a Russian composer called Igor Stravinsky. So such was the popularity by the end of the 19th century of Buddhism, especially, that in this book of, what is the date out here? 19, because my head is coming in front here. I think it's 1894 or something like that. No? So he says there are 100,000 friends of the Buddha in Paris and at least 10,000 followers. Now, I can only add one more sentence saying that a lot of this popularity can be traced also to the Theosophists. What Blavatsky and her Theosophists did in that time was that they disseminated a lot of literature, translations of texts, Sufi texts, texts from Iran. The first issue of the Russian journal Theosophist had excerpts from the Bhagavad Gita as much as possible. There was a state that was having an Orientalist view of non-Western peoples. And there was this little sliver of people who were actually reaching out. I mean, some of them didn't really understand. They understood it in their own way. But that excitement was palpable throughout that period. And as you can see, perhaps again there is a crisis, because I don't know how many million now they say Buddhists are once again coming up all over the world, turning towards Buddhism. I know about yoga, at least that you know. How much was it? $16 billion are spent every month in America on accessories and yoga classes and costumes or something like that. So we are still there, you know, as you can see, beginning of the 21st century, and we still have people turning towards other cultures, except, as I said, all the people that I mentioned, they disappeared from Soviet textbooks. The ones in Europe were maligned in Europe, in France, England, Germany, whoever opposed the state. And these are the mysteries that we should now, which are coming out, but which more and more of you should help to bring out, because it's a fascinating, wonderful world of interconnections, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Maybe,
Thank you.
we may now, we are open for the questions. If colleagues here, dear colleagues and friends, if you have questions, you can write here, or you can raise your virtual hand so that we can give you a mic. So meanwhile, others are preparing. May I ask a question?
Yes, please. Yes.
So I have a question regarding this yoga and Buddhism. Like as you are saying that, like, you know, that as per the book, like it is said in 1894 that Buddhist followers were there. So was it the yoga was also carried with the Buddhism, or it was a separate phenomena over there?
No. See, all right. Have you heard of Annie Besant?
Yeah.
She was our first Congress leader, president. You know that? India. Now, she was a socialist. She was a good friend of Bernard Shaw, the dramatist. And she was one day sent a book to review. It was a review by, it was a book by Blavatsky. And she just totally changed. She moved over to Theosophy. So Theosophy, Blavatsky herself claimed that she was a Buddhist, but she did not force it on anybody. No religion was forced. And what they were doing was they did a lot of translations. So I have a feeling even this Ram Charak gentleman was a Theosophist. And then there was a book called Thought Forms by Annie Besant and Leadbeater, which actually shows you the auras. So it was a extremely popular book at that time. So they were disseminating yoga, they were disseminating Buddhist ideas, they were disseminating, Sufi ideas. It was all there. They said, we are not here to convert anyone. We are socialists, but we want to do it through non-violence. So that was the difference. In Russia, in Moscow, you could have young poets and writers who could be both Buddhist and Marxist at the same time, by the way. So there was no contradiction at that time. And there were so many, many places where in people's homes, you used to have discussions. And that's where, somewhere Buddhism is being discussed, somewhere Nietzsche is being discussed, somewhere, Marxism is being, and that's how it was. It was very vibrant. I mean, I think people who call it Silver Age are highly mistaken. This was really the golden age of Russian culture.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is really wonderful to have such kind of material from your side. And it is, I think, it is opening a lot of areas for the research scholars and the faculty members.
Please, please.
So,
yes,
but tell me, how did you find, such kind of passion into this kind of study, like histories and mysteries? How did you come to this topic?
All my works have been like this. I start with one thing, I end up with something else because it overtakes you,
No,
Okay.
how did you manage to get the material? Because of course, this is very interesting topic, but getting material is, I think it's very difficult.
It is not some. It is like, searching in the sand, slow. And that's why my family says, when are you going to finish it? And I said, no, look, I didn't know this at all. Then I'm into France, sometimes I'm in Germany, sometimes in, and there are all these people who were all united together. So gradually you get to know a whole beautiful sort of, my book Crucifying, when I started it, it was meant to have been a book on Indo-Russian relations. At the end of when I had finished the book, there was just one sentence left of the original. There was nothing about India in it. So that's how it is, with research.
Yeah, the same question is asked by Professor Rohini Sahni. And she says, thank you so much, Kalpana, it was awesome, but how did you find all this amazing material? So as like Professor Banerjee had the question similar, I think many people must have this question.
Yeah, because
okay, so
collecting these.
yeah. So we have a question from Parijat Bhattacharya. Parijat, can you please switch on your mic? Just click on unmute, please. Parijat. Yeah, Parijat.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It
Yeah,
was a very, very, sorry, I can't switch on my video thing because my laptop doesn't support it right now.
That's okay. That's okay.
It was very interesting, and it was very interesting to know about a few things that I had never thought of. I had never read anywhere. I have done a bit of reading on Stanislavski because my work was on cinema. So I've done a little bit of reading on theater as well. And I never thought that yoga and Puranas played that important role in the theater training during that period. So it was very, very interesting and informative, and it will be really good if you can suggest some readings. I mean, if there is something that we can just kind of read on.
We'll start with a gentleman called Sergei Cherkassky.
Can you please?
SCR. Do you speak Russian?
Yeah, пожалуйста.
Sergei Cherkassky. Sergei
Cherkassky.
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 Okay. And just go and just type in Stanislavski yoga. Okay. So in Russian, he is the best expert, and he will guide you to the Americans who have, been writing about it. So you'll get all the information. I think there's a lady called Sharon Kornike or something her name is. But go to Cherkassky first, okay?
Ага. Понятно. Спасибо вам огромное.
Пожалуйста, пожалуйста.
Professor Debal Das Gupta.
Yeah. Debal Das Gupta, can you please unmute your mic? Professor Debal Das Gupta? Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Well, I will not take long, just a minute maybe. I remember Kalpana as my teacher only. And she insists that I would call her Kalpana, otherwise I'm not very used to. Still respecting her wish, I am calling you Kalpana. I just want to go back some 40 years only, when me, Amita, my classmate, we were in MA Russian at CRS. We entered the first time to Kalpana's room as students, and we were very scared. We were not very scared because she would scold, or we didn't hear of any such incident that Kalpana was did scold anyone. We were facing a huge ocean of knowledge, and from within, as Kiranji asked, or I don't know, most probably Ranjana also asked, that where did you get the interest, or how did you, this path must have been very, very long and difficult, as she said, that look in the sand. I started my career with Ministry of Culture as an assistant to Bhishma Sahni ji. Kalpana, I wonder whether you would remember, and there was this Victor Baruch, the author who was visiting Sahni ji, and that time he had given me the script of Hanush to do it whenever I would like. And after that, I have met Kalpana many, many times. Her knowledge is enormous. She was the one who took me to see the play Raina's The Cherry Orchard for the first time. So, Kalpana, I feel more and more enlightened when I talk to you, listen to you, and just thanks to CRS for giving us this opportunity to listen to her once again. It was wonderful, absolutely. My knowledge is very limited, therefore I would not go into the details of all that you have said, but definitely it is a renewal of interest in the field. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, David. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Professor Meeta Narayan had some question. Professor Meeta Narayan?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Kalpana. Well, as Debala said, I have absolutely, such fond and, deep memories of how you started our culture and civilization class at CRS when I entered in 76. And that's how, the real interest in what culture is, which showing your small toys and, pictures and paintings from that time, which really made us, interested on what culture is, and not just going and reading a book which just goes on from pages to pages. But my interest is, I'm myself interested in Buddhist studies, and I have seen that it is spreading at a very fast rate in Moscow. In my recent visits to Moscow, Petersburg, I saw dastans and I saw the Buddhist monasteries where how they are practicing. And I've also seen in the institute that it is becoming a part of their curriculum of studying Buddhism as a renewal of life, as they say. And they're bringing it, in Japan, in China also. You have seen in the departments of Indology, where it has become a subject of study through which knowledge is imparted not only on the Buddhist sects, but on the whole of what these Buddhism, Jainism, other sects mean to life itself, where yoga also comes into picture. So do you think it should be a part of a curriculum in the university level, especially at the present stage, which gives an enlightenment to the study of culture via Buddhism?
Oh dear.
No, it is just because I have seen, I presented a paper. We had a conference organized by the Japanese Center, where they say that Buddhist studies, they're adopting it as a subject which is enlightening them and teaching them the what do you call, the paths of advancement which have been coming from the past. So there was a big discussion on this. Should it be a sort of a platform of discussion at the teaching level?
Let's get back to what you said earlier, and that is, see, Buddhist studies became quite strong in just prior to the revolution, by the way.
Yeah.
In 1913, a huge temple was inaugurated in Petersburg. Rerich did the inside decor of it, and this gentleman, Kazimir Malevich, by the way, in the third, he was also imprisoned like everybody else out there who I mentioned. And he was sick and used to go regularly to the Tibetan doctors, medical doctors from this temple, okay, where, by the way, also the Tsar's children were going and getting treatment. Now, what happened is, you had some of the best minds by then. Shirbatskoy was one of the greatest Buddhist scholars. And that also because, you see, within the Russian Empire, you had the Buryats, who were already Buddhists. You had Kalmyks, who were
Albiks, yeah.
And by the way, Khlyebnikov grew up amongst these Buddhists. That's why he knew everything about Buddhism, by the way. And what happened after the revolution was that most of those doctors and the lamas were shot dead. All right. Oriental studies was shut down, and I think about 55 scholars, not just Indologists, but Chinese experts, Central Asian experts, a lot of them they disappeared either into Siberia or whatever. It closed. And it was only in, I think, in the mid-50s, that's when he comes back, which is Rerich's son, Yuri, who knew, I don't know how many 100 languages, including Mongolian, and he was a great expert, who brought back Buddhist studies, and it once again revived. I mean, they had some, he was there hardly 3 years before he died. So teaching it, one doesn't know, what does Buddhism say? There's no God. They say whatever you experience, you have to believe in. What you experience, don't go by what anybody tells you, including our books. Correct? So, teaching or not teaching, God knows, one more subject that poor children will have to mug up. Depends on how you look at it, no?
Yeah, that's true. So, and also the representation of Buddhist, scriptures, they are very different everywhere in each country. That the lying Buddha, if you see that picture, if you see the absolutely sparkling Buddha's head, which has been depicted in different forms. Well, you must be knowing much more in that.
It's a philosophy or a way of
it's the philosophy.
Debate.
Yeah,
not to debate everything. No, nothing is still.
Yeah.
There is cyclical time. There is not linear. No lie like
that. Yeah. That's true. Thank you. Yeah. It's very interesting, in fact, to know, especially the head of Buddha. There are so many different viewpoints, how the head is depicted, and sometimes they say the gold, it is the thing behind it is as still as gold. His head is full of, so they make it of the golden color. So such things, it's interesting to sometimes.
You have lots of bits coming up. No?
Yeah.
Dr. Meenu Bhatnagar has raised hand.
Yeah, before that, Nilima ji is there, her mic is unmuted. Nilima ji? Okay, I think she's not there. So Dr. Meenu Bhatnagar. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello. Yeah, she's got a Buddha behind her.
How are you doing?
Fine.
Yeah, there is a Buddha behind me. Yeah, always a pleasure listening to you. And you took me back almost 20 years, reminded me of my classes, first year, second year, culture and civilization classes. So thank you so much. It was pretty nostalgic listening to your lecture. And just a short question that I have for you is that you mentioned about Stanislavski. You had done Stanislavski in our culture and civilization classes as well. And so I do remember that very clearly, what all you taught us. The references that you were talking about, yoga, and spirit and pran, that were removed from Stanislavski's philosophy around the revolution. Yeah, book. What is the attitude towards such words or towards his philosophy at the present moment, in present day Russia? Is it just the same, or has the attitude changed towards Stanislavski's philosophy, Stanislavski's work, whether these words have come back in his, he remains relevant even today. So in present day Russia, what is the sort of, how do they look at?
No, he's a god. He's a god, no? He remains a god. And, and Mikhail Chekhov has become a god. A person who was thrown out of that country, nobody could take his name. Today in Russia, they say he was the best actor of the 20th century. So there you are. You look at the irony, look at these sort of, in a way, tragedies also, no? But the most interesting thing is, Cherkassky, I think, teaches also in Vitis or something, the theater school, I'm not sure. But I'm sure, Russia is the only place where even people, when they're in heaven, they keep producing new works, They keep coming out more and more complete. Polno sabranie sachinenie. Теперь еще полнее, And similarly with Stanislavski, I'm sure they would have reprinted those works where they had omitted all these. So let's see. But Cherkassky is a very good person to read. And when I taught you Stanislavski, think of it that way. I was also stupid. No, I never knew this. I had no clue. Very, very often I say to my family, I say, if only I could go back and start teaching, I'd see all of it in a different way. That's how, but you guys will get to it. You will find it.
Let's see. I don't know. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So the next question is from Angaji.
Hello, thank you very much for a brilliant lecture, Professor Sahni. There was just a slight question because I don't have so much of literature background, but the examples of modernism that you have given, they are mostly from performative and depictive arts. Today, when we refer to modernism in literature, it is something else because offhand, off the cuff, I cannot think of anything from Russian literature except probably Bunin, in whose literature you could find some traces of this kind of affiliation towards Buddhism or towards the Oriental thoughts. So could you please just elaborate a bit on modernism in literature?
All right. So now you must remember that in this period, the people in the forefront were the poets. It was not the people writing prose. Goncharova with her partner Larionov, and then it was a wonderful group of people. I mean, you had Georgians, you had Lithuanians, Baltics, Armenians, together sort of discovering new grounds. And one of them was, all right, apart from what I've told you, in Europe at this time, as I said, One aspect is shunyata, shunya, zero, emptiness. The other one was the concept of allusion. Allusion, matlab, you allude to something, you don't say something direct. And this was from Abhinav Gupta. Abhinav Gupta's whole thing where he talks of ras is to do with this. You don't mention everything, you allude to it, correct? This took everyone by storm. There was, and so all right, so you had a poet called Vinyadav, I've forgotten his first name, who in this period writes a book of poems. And his last poem is called Poema Skansa. Yeah, Poema Kansa. It was a blank page. And he would get to that page and just do something with his hands. So the concept of shunyata, got it? Concept of totally disentangling language and putting it back together. Again, this is a very Buddhist concept. You disentangle everything. Chlebnikov, Daniel Harms, Wyjensky. Oh, there are so many beautiful poets out there. So it was in poetry that you got a lot of this experimentation with language per se. So we are not talking of Buddhism as a, how should I say it? You were being inspired by ideas. It's not necessarily that you sort of, in a bookish way, sort of started taking, some of course took the style or took some ideas from there, but the whole philosophy behind it. So language, they had lots of wonderful, wonderful poets. So you go to the poets, and then later on go to the prose was left behind. Mayakovsky is far behind Chlebnikov. Go to Chlebnikov first. For instance, he says, why, if you're saying mantras, for instance, they ostensibly don't mean anything, and yet they mean something. All right. Is it the sound? Is it the vibration? And then he works on the Russian language per se, just words per se, how he brings back the ancient Russian words and plays around with it. It's beautiful. Just go. Work on him. Work on language. Work on what they were doing. Anything else?
Thank you. Nilakshi Suryanarayan ma'am has a question.
I'm sorry, I can't turn on my video. I have a bit of a problem with that. But thank you, Kalpana, very much for the very interesting lecture. I wanted to just add on, actually, since we came to the topic of literature, I thought I would also mention and take your opinion on Nikolai Gumilyov, who was very, very, influenced by the Eastern philosophy. Yes. And his entire, that poem, Zabludivshisia Tramvai, is basically running around that.
Correct.
So I just thought I'll add on for Ranga, who had brought up the literature topic. And I wanted to just mention about what Neeta said about teaching. I think when we were in school, we used to have, our first period was actually a period called moral education, or it was like 20 minutes of moral education. That's what it was called. And I remember going through school, initially even up to the 9th class, this period was compulsory. And I think what we are talking about teaching values, it is all these mixed values of Buddhism, that how you're connected, the microscope is connected to the macrocosm, and the daily kind of behavior of life. I think it used to all unravel in those classes. So what I'm trying to say is that teaching these things per se as a course, what Meeta said, that you can start teaching a course on Buddhism maybe in the university. I think it should just come back at the school level, where where this is all very much needed, that you're actually connected to the universe, what Buddhism teaches us, and that you're very much a part of the universe. And from that, all the other values of humanism, compassion, and all that comes out. So I just wanted to add to that, and thank you very much for the paintings that you showed. Real treat. So we're going to take it on from there. Thank you very much.
Can I just add something that Nilakshi said about Gumilyov?
Yes, please, ma'am.
Well, I showed you one of those paintings of Venturova's or a portrait of Gumilyov. By the way, maybe you don't know, when he was, I think, 12 years old, he wrote a story or a play, was it? No, I can't recall, on Buddha. Before that, he wrote another thing, a story on the 1857 Indian Revolt, by the way. So Gumilyov was very much into all of this, whether it was India, Persia, yeah. India Duha, no? Isn't it? In the Zabludivший трамвай, it's India Duha. Дайте мне билет. India Duha. Okay.
Dr. James has a question. Dr. James, can you please unmute your mic? Yes, please.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, yeah, I don't have any questions. I have only, I was thanking Professor Kalpana Sahni. I met her again in Moscow during the Indian festival, which was conducted in the 90s. She was accompanying the theatrical group Moscow Likaval and Narayana Panikar's Sanskrit drama. I don't remember exactly which one. Anyway, this lecture was very interesting, and I thank you for revealing the mysteries through the histories of arts of a few famous authors, philosophical depth, and the connection to the Persian and Indian miniature paintings and the yogic expressions in theatrical production of the start of 20th century, microcosmic expression of basic understandings of people in paintings and other arts forms. All these were very interesting for me, and thank you. Look forward once again to come up with more topics and presentations for us. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Somebody has raised the hand.
Indu Shekhar.
Yes, Indu. Please unmute your mic.
Hello, and thank you for this wonderful lecture. And there's a lot to learn and read about. But like I would like to just ask, can you elaborate more on the reasons behind the disappearance? As like, is it the state or is it the organic process? Because when we talk about like Russia or Soviet Union, we can see like there could be a clear picture that the ideological pressure, due to ideological pressure or like state politics, these names could have been lost. But like losing names or like disappearance of the names in the history is also organic process also. So could you please elaborate on the more on reasons behind this disappearance? And yes.
Okay, let's, when I used to teach at the university, can you hear me now?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. So when I used to teach, the first thing I would tell my students if they were doing some research project, I'd say, look at the date of the publication. All right. If it is pre-Khrushchev date, then you will not get such and such portions. Whether it's a Tolstoy, whether it's a Dostoevsky, everyone was censored. So the date of publication in Russian, within Russia, is what matters a lot. All right. So things just miraculously disappear. Their own people's writings disappear, then they reappear 100 years later. Someone, I think, had given a talk on Tagore in Moscow. Unfortunately, I couldn't listen to it, but I do know that Tagore wrote about his visit, and criticized some of the aspects of Soviet life.
That
And especially about, to do with, I think, the regimentation of that society. Now that disappeared from Russian publications. By the time Tagore reached America, they criticized him because they said, you've done nothing but praise those guys, whereas look at what happened there. So whether it's a Tagore whose writing disappears, and it's not just in the Soviet Union, all the few painters that I've shown you, European painters, poets, they were maligned. If they went against the state, Oscar Wilde, if you've heard of him, he was imprisoned because he was gay. And then they kept him at a railway station and in chains for about 4 hours just to sort of, ridicule this poor writer. So any writer that strayed away from what the state thought was maligned. He was either gay, or he was a womanizer, or he was a pervert. It happened to all the great people. Baudelaire, one of the finest poets in France, he suffered this. It was like that. It went on and on. Gauguin died a very awful death, like that. So it doesn't happen just by chance. It doesn't. It's the critics also who are very much, part of it. They might follow the state's diktat. If the state is saying this, then, we also follow. So it's like that. Didn't Kabir also, the poet, our own Kabir, have problems with the state? So in every society, I guess, it happens.
True, true. Irina Maximenka is here. She wanted to say something. Yes, Irina Maximenka, can you please unmute your mic? Yeah.
I'm here. Thank you. I'll try to be very short. Every time when I take part in your web seminars, I'm not going to speak, but I cannot keep, without speaking, because every time I'm actually so much impressed. My life, it happened so that I met very many very interesting personalities. And actually it's very personal, but Kalpana, I was an interpreter of your father, Bishop, few times in Moscow. Even I have been to your place in Delhi with Natalia Prigarina, a famous scholar. It was 86. We were very young that time.
Okay.
Well, yes, but if
Yes,
you...
Очень знакомы.
I am so sorry that last time I was in India many times after that, but I didn't contact you, unfortunately. If ever, inshallah, I come again, I'll try to meet you.
Please.
If Sonu and you people allow me, a few small things, absolutely different. One is about your father. I remember it was Writers' Union Congress in Russia. Don't remember the number, 5th or 6th. And we were going after the official part to attend one meeting, lecture, very official on high level. I came to know from my own sources that there will be a meeting with Yuri Trifonov.
Trifonov,
Yes, somewhere else, but I couldn't allow myself to go there and couldn't take Bisham. He was a delegate official. So I asked him, Bisham ji, क्या ये लेक्चर सुनने जाएंगे या ऐसे है त्रिफनव से मुलाकात होने वाले हैं? He told me, जरूर जाएंगे वहाँ, गाड़ी मिल जाएगी या मैं टैक्सी लेकर जाऊंगा. And we went there. Thanks to your father. Even now I have a few masks he has given to me because he knew that I'm collecting masks, Indian masks. ये एक बात है जी. So sweet memories. I didn't want to speak actually, but I cannot keep these feelings inside. I'll feel so, I don't know how to say, because you impressed me greatly by this lecture. I'm very much thankful to you and to organizers, to Russian Center, Ranjana, Sono, to all of the people. A few small things which came to my mind listening to your lecture. Thank you very much about telling about Stanislavski and yoga. I never knew, though I attended art studio in my young years and I knew about, I read his book, My Life. I never knew about the connection with yoga. Now I came to understand some things. It is very interesting. And then you showed this circle, chakra, from India to Russia, from Russia via Mikhail Chekhov to the States. It is like it is going in life. Everything is connected.
Absolutely.
Yes, everything is connected. And the more I live and the more I see things good, the more I feel that it is like that.
Absolutely.
You, Kazimir Malevich, many prominent Russian painters in different times, they try to explain to me what does it mean. I never understand. Only now I've got the meaning. I was just looking, and what then? I understand it is great, but why? What is the meaning? Why he put it like, why he painted? Now I've got, it is absolutely clear. Many thanks to you, dear. Then it came to my mind, I remembered 2 years ago in Vienna, in Belvedere Palace. It was either Klimt or Kokoschka, don't remember exactly, but a very big painting. It's called A Way to Myself. I made photos of some my favorite paintings by Klimt, you know this, Kiss and some others. This I tried 3 times. It didn't come. But now I understand. It is, I felt it is, there is some connection with India. Now I understood. It is mandala.
And you have Clint and
Kokoschka. There were 3 of them. Klimt, Shelley. It is not Shelley. This I remember absolutely clear. And there is the third one, very strange name. It sounds like Ukrainian, Kokoschko.
Yes.
Yes, maybe it is Kokoschka.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And it is mandala. It is actually, what is the way to myself? It is mandala. That's it.
Chirlionis.
Yeah?
Chirlionis also.
Yes. Chirlionis was a favorite painter and composer of my mother, who passed away many years ago. I came to know about Chirlionis because of her. You know, everything is connected. And the 2 small things, please, I want to apologize that I'm taking so much of time of your and other people, but please excuse me.
Thank you very much. Now
But two very, in short, a few years ago in Amboise, in France, I read Leonardo da Vinci, the beginning of 16th century. No, in which connection it was wrote, he wrote it, I am not going to explain. He wrote, it was translated into English, though all the tables are only in French. We should make bridges between cultures. The beginning of 16th century. So when we are saying that we should make bridges between the civilizations and cultures, I think that bridges, as Kalpana has shown, they come by themselves. We only should try not to destroy them and to preserve. It's what I would like to say. And each point which was mentioned today can become the topic of separate lecture and discussion. The crossways of cultures and civilizations. Thank you very much once more. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
the best
Thank you.
to everybody. Thank you so much.
It's really wonderful to know that how world is smaller the world is.
Yeah,
But
it is like that. And it is a feeling inside me that it is like that.
Right,
All
right.
of us were connected. I'm not going to speak about the depth of Indian culture and philosophy, because for me it is as dear as Russian culture is dear to you people. It is part of myself. Thank you once more. Love to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now, before we go to the next question, I have just one request to all of the participants. We can see that some of the participants are using the default name of their devices, like such as Galaxy A2 or iPhone. Please, in case if you can rename your profile, then it will be a great help for us to find out who you are and to find out and to make all the official records over in our side at our side. One thing more, if you cannot do that, if you cannot rename yourself, then you can just write your name in the chat box so that we can correlate and do it from our side, our end. Okay, so Ranja ma'am, Kiran ma'am, is there any other question if you can find out if you have missed something?
I don't see anybody. Somebody is raising hand. Android, but what is that?
Android Blue Droid. Actually, we cannot give a mic in this way because that's what we have requested. If you can write this person with Android Blue Droid, please write your name in the chat box so we can identify you for the security reason. Only then
somebody, Nilima, is it Nilima?
Harshita, I think, is raising the hand. Harshita?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you have any question?
Yes, sir. I want to ask, ma'am, where we can see the very first impression of Buddhism in Russian literature.
All right. Do you know that the story of Buddha traveled and he became a Christian saint, both in Russian Christianity and in European Christianity, everywhere. So actually Buddha traveled a long time ago to Russia. Wait a minute, let me try and remember what is it called. Josaphat, age else. I can't offhand remember, but he's a Christian saint. So he is part of the Christian stories, a very important, I will keep thinking of what was the name of that saint. It will come back, okay? So it's a very, very old, and there are different sort of stories going around. They say Jesus was born and then he disappeared, and it seems he came to the Himalayas and trained and went back when he was 20 plus. So another research on that.
Olga Karaseva is giving the prompt Tsarevich Yusuf.
Yusuf and
Yusuf Tsarevich. Only that is what she has written.
Yusuf. Yes, maybe you're right, because he was a Tsarevich and all the things that happened to Buddha happened to him. So go to Yusuf and you'll find it. Varlami Yusuf.
Varlami Yusuf.
I think it's Varlami Yusuf. Okay.
Yes,
Okay. So Nilimaji has now questioned that blue bird was Nilimaji. Yes, Nilimaji.
Just a minute. I don't know. Just a minute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Can hear you.
But we can't see you.
You can't see me. Okay.
We want to see you.
Yeah. Now is it okay, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hello. How are you? You look gorgeous.
And like everybody else, I'm also really thankful to you for teaching us, the tangent way of looking at the same thing, and the out-of-box thinking processes, and a number of things which I cannot even talk about. Ma'am, but I have a couple of questions to you, rather not questions. I would want you to enlighten us in future. For example, the way we assume, the way it is proven now, sorry, not assume, that the text, there have been certain, the texts which were not there or which were removed or something like that. But at the same time, I'm sure there must be certain creation of new texts. Like we do have, many claiming, okay, this is the work of Vincent Van Gogh, and it may not be. But so as to prove it, one has to have, dig deep into it. So as to deliberately, maybe my basically request to you is, if at all, are you aware of any such thing where post-Soviet, just to demean the Soviet government also, or their I'm so sorry.
How do I do this? Okay.
So,
sorry.
So is there any deliberate such creation of text or artistic work or something like that, or which is to kind of change the narration which was earlier there, the actual narration, the real one I'm talking about.
Okay. Look, as far as the Russians are concerned, as I said, Polное Sabranie is something that keeps on happening. Pushkin continues to bring out Polное Sabranie, sitting in heaven. Go for what is being brought out now.
Now.
Yeah, post perestroika. I mean, let's say the perestroika period onwards.
Okay.
Number two, I think there are some very good publishing houses that are bringing it out. Akademicheskие izdания also you are getting. Then you've got wonderful sites on the net see, when you were growing up, any white Russian in Europe was looked at suspiciously. But these were the poor, a lot of them were people who loved their country. They were about the best writers and all were forced to leave. I think there were about 55,000 in Paris alone after the revolution. All right. So go for those publications of theirs also there, no? After all, publications by Russians in Berlin and all, in America, they did a lot of service, you can say, whether it was to ballet in America or England or France or in theater or art. The only people I feel who really must have suffered were the poets and writers, because suddenly from a huge readership, you've suddenly got hardly any readership. They are coming out. There is a site called Staraya Literatura. Staraya Literatura, go have a look at that site. And then there is another one called In Verden. It's in Germany, but again, it's a free site. And you'll get wonderful works of authors who were, even Dostoevsky wasn't published during the Soviet time. After all, some of his major works came out only during Perestroika period, no?
Okay.
And secondly, what you have to be very careful of is that, you see, up to now, critics think that if there is a hint of Eastern non-Western influence, they do not want to accept it because it's mystica. It's mysticism, it's religiosity, it's nonsense. That so-and-so person got over it very fast. So you have to be very careful that with the contemporary critics up to now. Up to now, they will not accept. Well, now slowly they are, but we cannot.
Because I have seen there are books like on mysticism also, which is appearing now quite in numbers, I guess.
So you have to be careful. You see, the internet throws a lot of information, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's knowledge. All right?
Okay.
And you have to be very careful of that. And
Right.
the other thing you said, okay, these painters I showed you, one thing that they loved about non-Western art and culture was that very often our painters never wrote their name down. Yes? So that the concept of I, the Superman, was not there. A lot of miniature paintings, other paintings, folk paintings, nobody wrote their name, it didn't matter. So that's what they liked. And the other thing, of course, was they said, what do you mean by imitation? What is imitation? We, after all, we can take from so-and-so, so-and-so. It is only now that we talk of copyright, plagiarism. In olden times, a woman could write the Sita Ramayana, no? And someone else could write a Ramayana with Ravana as the hero, no? So the point is, how do you look at it? Is there something authentic? What is the concept of authenticity? Is it to do with the ego? After all, so it's like that. All these things are, you can think about that.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's such a pleasure, listening to you. And I would like you to please have some more sessions more often. And thank you so much.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilimaji. Kalpana ma'am, you have a lot of compliments over here for wonderful lecture, wonderful presentation, very fruitful knowledge. Around more than, I think, if I could count it correctly, more than 40 compliments are here for you for the wonderful presentation. And there is one student called Siddhant. Maybe this may be the last question we will take, otherwise we'll be running out of the frame because many people are there. Okay, so Siddhant, you have any question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am. My question to you is, have you ever visited Bodh Gaya, where the Lord Buddha got enlightenment? If yes, may you share your experience with us?
Bodh Gaya. I've been
Yes,
to
ma'am.
Sarnath. I've been to Sarnath. And I've been to Ladakh, where there are beautiful monasteries. And I have seen some of the best Buddhist sculptures in Tajikistan. Yes, Tajikistan. Some of the most wonderful Buddhist iconography is there. Aage bolo.
No.
Yeah, I think there is one more student who wanted to ask about Buddhism. This, I think, Pragya, I'll just try to give him mic. Yes, Pragya, can you switch on your mic? Or maybe just if in case he's not getting on. So maybe I'll just read his question. His question is why Russian Buddhists practice is Tibetan Buddhism, not Theravadian Buddhism? This is first question. And second question is Theosophical Buddhist were like Illuminati of Christianity?
Well, you see, Theravada is in Sri Lanka. Theravada Buddhism is in Sri Lanka in some parts, no? It traveled from India to China. The Mahayana one was the other one. From China, it went to Japan also. And Tibetans had their own religion called the Bon religion. It was a pre-Buddhist. And I think it was Padma Sambhav who went from the Swat Valley, which unfortunately today is in the Pakistan side of the subcontinent. And he was a Kashmiri, I'm not sure, but he went from the Swat Valley to propagate or rather teach Buddhism. So that's what happened there. What was the other question?
Other question was, is Theosophical Buddhist or
see, Theosophy, all right. Blavatsky had these amazing ability, like we have every second person on the road in India has it, no? Where you can move things with your eyes or you don't touch them, ESP. She had a lot of that when she was young. And then she went around all over the world studying more. So when she finally set up this, it was to be a sort of, it was not a political party. There were lodges that they set up, and it was about interaction and love between all religions or non-religions or atheists. But the goal was that you help people. The best schools, by the way, Montessori schools were also part of that theosophy, by the way, movement. And Waldorf schools also. And the best painters went to them. So what happened was that they had so many little lodges, as they call them, all over the world, where they did a lot of translation work. And if I do give you a lecture, another one, because I've left out a very important gentleman today, and he was the great-grandson of Tipu Sultan, who in this very period we are talking about was in Moscow. He was there for 7 months. He was the recipient of the Tansen Award. His name was Inayat Khan. All right. And so that is another very fascinating story. He knew North Indian music, South Indian, also Karnataka, and he was a Sufi. So we will get to that later on, maybe.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. Kiran ma'am and Banerjee ma'am.
Sorry. I wanted to just finish that. Why did I bring him in?
Okay.
We had a lot of people traveling at that time. Whether it was Vivekanand, who was also going around, who said, Europeans are a very confused lot of people, they love India, they love but how confused they are is unbelievable. The Theosophists hosted all these people and they also translated them. Please remember, Mahatma Gandhi was given the Bhagavad Gita for the first time in London by the Theosophists. Isn't that funny? He said, I'd never heard of the Gita. So it was one of those loose things. But like everything else, later on, anything becomes rigid, isn't it? So but they did a lot. I mean, your Banaras Hindu University was set up by them. Your Kalakshetra was set up by them in Madras. I mean, so they were the alternative. While the colonial powers said we are, our painting is disgusting, our culture is awful. There were the Theosophists who were saying, no, please start looking at your own culture. You're great. So they have a very important part to play. They cannot be ignored in modernism. Okay.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I think a lot of compliments again from various colleagues and friends. I'll not be able to read all the names because it's a huge list. Thank you very much for all the compliments and comments. Maybe then we can move towards the next part of our program. Kiran ma'am.
Is there another lecture?
No. It's just
okay.
Kiran ma'am.
I do have many things to share with
Yes,
ma'am, but of course, while delivering my vote of thanks, that time I'll share at least something from my side also. Fine. So
maybe we can request you, ma'am, Kiran ma'am,
just
to deliver the vote of thanks.
just I want vote of thanks already. Shall I?
Yeah, I think
deliver?
like we are running out of time.
Before
Maybe.
that, I will quickly thank
Yeah, before maybe.
Dr. Khosla for such an interesting lecture, and you have set the tune, and I think we have to continue with this. We should have few more lectures, and it's very interesting topic, and it's like an ocean actually. There's so much to know and so much to discuss. So thank you once again, and would love to see you again.
Thank you.
Yes, maybe Kiran ma'am.
Yeah. It will be, of course, in both in Russian and English. Will it be okay, ma'am?
Fine.
Fine. Okay. Okay. От имени Центра русских исследований Университета имени Джавахарлала Неру примите нашу искреннюю признательность, уважаемый, очень-очень уважаемый профессор Kalpana Sahni Khosla, за то, что вы приняли наше приглашение. Спасибо за проведение такой очень-очень интересной, информативной и плодотворной лекции с таким интересным и привлекательным материалом. Ma'am, I want to share, of course, something with you as I was your student in first year when you taught us. Like Dr. Meenu Bhatnagar and Dr. Nilima Singh shared, the lecture, this lecture is very, very, very nostalgic for us today. It has taken back to our students' years. Your lectures, your classes were always very, very interesting. I remember even those days, you used to show us slides with portraits of Russian and Soviet writers. You showed us slides of Yasnaya Polyana on projector, those Russian projectors, right? And you showed us slides of Yasnaya Polyana. Of course, I was so impressed. There was a great impact, I will say. I have visited Yasnaya Polyana almost more than 10 times. And I share this with my students also. And I remember that Jereva Lyubvi, my students also know, of course, Jereva Lyubvi and Magila. And whenever I go there, my friends are still there. Many of my friends are there, Indian friends. Russian are also there, of course, but Indian friends. I tell them to take me to Yasnaya Polyana whenever I visit Moscow. So they, of course, make joke of me also. They say, we will dig a grave of yours with Tolstoy's grave. So see, so ma'am, really thank you so much. You are such a wonderful person, such a wonderful human being, such a teacher. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just have to. Okay. Сейчас, конечно, по-русски или можно так? I would like to express my sincere thanks to all other distinguished participants. Мы очень благодарны вам, участникам из разных стран России. У нас тут и Ирина Максименко, и Индира Газеева, Индира Газеева из Москвы, Хадича Шамбиталиева из Бишкека, еще там... Хорошо. Так, еще наши коллеги из нашего университета тоже присутствуют. Спасибо всем. Спасибо, профессор Руми, Насар Шакил Руми. Спасибо вам большое, профессор Мита Нараян, доктор Meenu Bhatnagar. Еще у нас...
Professor Rajnath Singh и профессор Vijay.
Профессор... Ага, хорошо. Мы очень благодарны вам, профессор Вариам Синг. Уважаемый профессор Вариам Синг, я вас видела, конечно, вы... Сейчас его нет, наверное, сейчас, да?
Да,
И да, сейчас его нет. И профессор Хариш Виджра, мы благодарим вас. Манидива Бол, вам большое спасибо. Профессор Девалдас Гупта из Гуджрата, тоже наш уважаемый профессор, очень известный. Спасибо вам большое.
Профессор Руми тоже.
Я уже поблагодарила. Я не могу забыть его. Да. Спасибо вам большое. Да, и еще спасибо всем. Мы очень благодарны всем участникам, нашим студентам, нашим гостям. Пожалуйста, берегите себя и своих близких. Спасибо вам большое. Спасибо.
Спасибо. Спасибо, ma'am. Just I also want to say a big thanks to Kalpana ma'am. Like this is the first time we, not maybe second time. Yeah, first we had a lecture in CRS, and then this is our second lecture. Like it can be first lecture online. So it was really enlightened to all of us, your talk, and opened various ways to in the upcoming research areas. Thank you very much, ma'am. I have just one comment to the participants. Like, thank you very much for all the comments and the suggestions which you have sent through the Google form or through the registration form. We are considering, we are taking all the requests together, and of course, we'll try to fulfill the most popular demand or most popular request or demand, you can say, and to bring on the floor to the distinguished person or speaker which you wish to listen to in our upcoming webinars. So keep connecting. Yes, keep connecting.
Sorry. Okay.
And that's
I
what
just would like to add to it.
Yeah.
Dr. Shomana Jha is also present.
Yeah,
Spasiba. Spasiba большое. Dr. Shomana Jha is from Jamia Millia Islamia University. Yeah, and Dr. C.V. James, you are a great support to us. You are always there to support us and the students. Everyone, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Yeah, Sonu, please.
Yeah, Kalpana ma'am, would you like to say something?
Oh.
Yes.
Я, как говорится, в шоке. Спасибо. Благодарю всех вас. Before we got onto this lecture, I had decided that I would put photographs of either my grandchildren or someone in front of the computer, because I said, you know, I have never given a lecture to a blank space. And then Sonu and Kiran said, no, you'll be able to see our faces. At which point, you don't know what it means to me to see all of you, stay healthy, and stay full of passion. Passion is what your profession is about, whether in research or teaching. It'll take you very, very far. And thank you for having me. It was lovely. It was not so bad as I thought. Let's put it that way. It was not so
I
bad.
hope you didn't feel that, ma'am.
No, because I could see you folks. If I couldn't see you, I would have been a total wreck, because all my classes used to be about throwing ideas and getting back ideas from students. And if I had a blank, wretched, what is this called, screen, I would have just not known what to say. So thank you so much for inviting me. Look after yourselves. And I'm not in Delhi, but I can tell you something. If there is a heaven, it is where we are right now. By the way, near the Dalai Lama. We are the foothills of Dharamsala. So come when it gets over. And best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you
We
very
have
much.
got one comment from Udayji, who is sitting in Bangkok, and he says that I can learn a lot sitting in Bangkok. Thank you for the lecture. Thank you, Udayji.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Professor Banerjee would like to say something at the end, so we can close. Officially, we can close.
Thank you. First of all, to Professor Khosla, and thanks to the participants who are always supporting us. And thanks for your feedback. That is also very important. And we will be continuing with this. And looking forward to see you all again.
Thank you. Thanks, Vishal, Dr. Vishal
Thank
Kumar
you very
Sinha.
much.
Spasiba Sonu, Professor Dr. Sonu Seni, and Professor Anjana Banerjee. Спасибо вам большое. У меня есть там текст большой, но я думаю, все достаточно. Да, спасибо вам.
Okay, maybe can we have a photograph? Just a photograph. Can we switch on the cameras? So before going, we can have a photograph to the memory.
Yeah.
Can we please switch on the camera? I would request you please switch on the camera. We're going to have a photograph session.
Where do you switch it on from?
No, your is on.
You're there.
Participants to save that bandwidth, they switch off the camera, so that's okay. So now we are going for the photography session, so we are just requesting them, all those who have not switched on their camera, they can just switch it on. So I can see most of on the first screen have on. Roshan is still not there. Roshan, quickly. So maybe we can, I'll just say 1, 2, 3, and then we can just smile. 1, 2, 3. One photo, and now the next photo, in which Gargi is there, Harshita is there. Yes, Haricha is there. Shivaji ji is there. Shivaji ji, can you switch on the camera? Sudarshan, Kavita, Uma ma'am is there.
Okay. They are also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amit from US.
I was looking for them actually. I could not see. Yeah.
They are on the other screen.
Okay.
So I'll just say once again, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All. Thank you all. So, Vidania.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now what do I do?
We'll just end meeting from here.
Okay.
Okay. Vidania.